So this is the chapter 15, segment 3 outline, starting on different emotions activate different regions of the human brain. So people that were shown photos of either their significant other or three of their friends who are of the same sex and age as their partner showed different activations in their brain regions. Love compared with friendship increased activity in the insula and the anterior cingulate gyrus, while subcortically there was an increase in activity of the caudate and the putamen. Love reduced activity in the posterior cingulate, amygdala, and right prefrontal cortex. Feelings of envy involved an increase in activity of the anterior cingulate gyrus or cingulate cortex, and a feeling of Schadenfreude experienced when envied rivals fall from grace. This includes the reward regions of the ventral forebrain, such as the nucleus accumbens. People who are asked to remember experiences of sadness, happiness, fear, or anger, as well as equally specific but emotionally neutral episodes, also had different brain region activation. The physiological responses preceded the brain signals, and that supported the James Lange theory. There was a pattern difference between the different emotions, but they were all within similar brain regions, so there's no happy or sad brain region centers. Activity of the cingulate cortex was altered in sadness, happiness, and anger. The left somatosensory cortex was deactivated in both anger and fear, and the feeling of regret over a costly decision involved the activation of the amygdala and the orbitofrontal region. The next section is neurocircuitry, hormones, and synaptic transmitters mediate violence and aggression. So the first thing is, what is aggression? For the purpose of the chapter, the term focuses on physical aggression and violence between individuals that excludes predatory-prey aggression, which is better defined as feeding behavior. The first definition is intermale aggression, which is aggression between males of the same species. It's observed in most vertebrates where males must fight one another to gain access to mates. Humans, males are generally more aggressive than females, despite the fact that they don't physically have to fight for a mate. Males are 5 times more likely to be arrested for charges of murder than women. Young boys tend to display vigorous, destructive play behaviors over girls, and these sex differences indicate the role of sex hormones. So androgens seem to increase aggression. Testosterone that prepares males for reproduction also makes them more aggressive. At sexual maturity, where there is the highest levels of circulating androgens, they also have the highest rates of intermale aggression. In the spotted hyena, though, the females are more aggressive than the males, but they were also exposed to higher prenatal androgens. Decreasing circulating androgen by castration usually reduces intermale aggression, but treating with testosterone restores the fighting behavior. Fruit flies have genes that control courtship and copulatory behaviors, which also promote intermale aggression. So the relationship between androgens and aggressions is less clear-cut in humans. When treating volunteers with extra testosterone, it doesn't always increase their aggression, just as young men going through puberty don't show an increase in aggression levels. Some studies show a correlation between testosterone levels and the magnitude of hostility. Testosterone is, though, related to antisocial behaviors. And non-aggression is correlated with satisfaction of family functioning and lower levels of serum testosterone. There are 2 main variables that complicate the relation between testosterone and aggression in humans and other animals. The first is that observations that experience can affect testosterone levels. So monkeys who lose an aggressive confrontation may then have lower levels of androgens following the encounter. It rises in the winners and it falls in the losers. There's also dominance, which males show competition effect by merely watching football teams lose. So men can actually have a drop in testosterone if their favored football team loses. Women treated with testosterone spend more time staring in the eyes of threatening faces, which is considered a socially dominant behavior. This type of dominance is used to protect social status and reproductive fitness. So these behaviors may involve overt aggression. Aggression has several neurochemical correlates. Aggressive behaviors in animals is modulated by activity in several neurotransmitter systems. Studies have shown a negative correlation between serotonin activity and aggression. So the most aggressive monkeys had the lowest levels of serotonin metabolites, meaning they had the least serotonin being released at synapses in the brain. Enhanced serotonergic activity prompts solitary locusts to overcome their unusual aversion to one another and form huge swarms that decimate croplands. Another thing that has been correlated with aggression is the balance between inhibitory neurotransmitter GABA and excitatory glutamate. Enhancing GABA transmission significantly reduces aggressiveness in humans. Other hormones, such as vasopressin, oxytocin, and other peptide hormones, as well as endogenous opioids, play a role in aggression as well. The ventral portion of the ventromedial hypothalamus serves as a switch to trigger aggression. Optogenetically stimulating neurons in the VMH in male mice causes them to stop mounting receptive females and begin attacking them. Inhibiting the VMH reduces the likelihood that subjects would attack another male. The biopsychology of human violence is a topic of controversy. So aggression is sometimes derived from temporal lobe disorders and seizures, but many people with violent criminal histories have normal EEGs and no other forms of neuropathy. There's something called emotional discontrol syndrome, which is a condition consisting of temporal lobe disorders that may underlie some forms of violence. Research has examined patients with seizures involving the limbic system, especially the temporal lobes, and these patients showed aggressive behavior that occurred after limbic seizures developed. In one case, a babysitter violently murdered a child during a temporal lobe seizure caused by the child's laughter. Psychopaths are an individual incapable of experiencing remorse. Generally, they're very intelligent with superficial charm, poor self-control, grandiose sense of self-worth, and little to no feelings of remorse. They don't react as negatively to violent words, and they show little autonomic response to cues that have been associated with aversive stimuli during fear conditioning. They also have reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is what controls impulsive behaviors. Stress activates many bodily responses. Stress is any circumstance that upsets homeostatic balance. It encompasses stressful stimuli, the stress processing system, and the responses to stress. So the stress response has multiple stages. The first is an alarm reaction, which is the initial response to stress. Following this, hypothalamic activation of the sympathetic nervous system begins to ready the body for fight or flight. The fight or flight response includes sympathetic stimulation of the core of the adrenal gland, called the adrenal medulla, which releases the hormones epinephrine and norepinephrine. The sympathetic response acts on other body systems, boosting heart rate, breathing, and other physiological responses. Another part of the alarm response is the hypothalamus stimulating the anterior pituitary to release a hormone that causes the outer layer of the adrenal gland, called the adrenal cortex, to release adrenal steroids such as cortisol. An adrenal steroid is a steroid hormone secreted by the adrenal cortex, and that includes glucocorticoids such as cortisol and mineralocorticoids such as aldosterone. These hormones act more slowly than epinephrine, but they also work to ready the body for action by releasing body stores of energy. This was actually studied in Norwegian military men during parachute training. On each jump, when they were first learning, the anterior pituitary released enhanced levels of hormones, and both the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems were activated. Initially, cortisol levels were elevated before the jumps, but with more training, the pituitary adrenal response declined. This was also seen in the sympathetic epinephrine and norepinephrine response. On the first day, testosterone levels fell, but returned to normal after more training. Other things that can have a decrease or have a stress response is factory work, which leads to an increase in epinephrine, because there's the more frequent a person has to repeat the same type of work operation, the higher their levels of cortisol.